All right, here we go. You guys, welcome to our forum presentation for the first Wednesday in June. I am excited to introduce to you my friend Bethany Maher. She is the Executive Director at MADA. MADA stands for Mexican American Development Association. She has been there for 5 years. She started as a volunteer with them, and then they knew that they better start paying her, or she was probably going to still stay on as a volunteer. You're going to love listening to her talk. I love bringing these presentations to you along with myself, Barbara Bynum, Judy Ann Files, and Kathy Hebers. So this one is a presentation you'll be glad that you listened to and came and watched. Also, always thanks to Will Woody, who comes and films this for the YouTube page for the city of Montrose. So if you missed something, or if you're like me and I said, you missed it, you need to go watch this. This is where you can find the presentation today. A little bit about Bethany. I've known of her for a long time. I've got to know her better because she attends the Giving Club. And she's got quite a group of friends that come with her. They're very, very close. I went into Bethany's office one time a while back to talk to her. And I knew, you can tell by looking at her, that she's really physically fit. But she's an ultra marathon runner as well. And last week I said, is that only 100 miles? Because truly I'm not a marathon runner. And she said it's anything over 26. She has a 40-mile this weekend, next month. But what was very interesting about Bethany is under her desk, which she doesn't sit down at, she stands up, she's got one of these treadmills, those office treadmills, and she walks on it as she's talking on the phone. And I was like flabbergasted, because you think, well, I'm in good shape, and then you walk in and see somebody who, she goes, I gotta get my steps in. And I'm like, yeah, you gotta keep moving. She's got 3 kids. They range in age, boy, girl, boy, 14 down to 9 years old. We're really lucky that she's part of this community. MADA has a lot going on, and I know that the board and the people that attend things that happen at MADA, they just love her. So I won't go on any more about this. I'll turn it over. Again, keep your questions till the very end, and I will bring the microphone to you. But yeah, thank you for being here.
Hi everyone. So as Phoebe said, I am the director at MADA, and I will give you a little bit of insight into how I got there. I moved here to Montrose 5.5 years ago for my husband's job. He works for the U.S. Department of Energy. And I worked for the city at the time. I used to live in Leadville, worked for the city there. I got a job here for the city. And then COVID hit shortly after we got here. And I actually was helping MADA in my role at the city. And then I had 3 small kiddos at home. And so I quit my job at the city, but I had a lot of experience in this type of work from my work in Leadville, and felt compelled to stay with MADA and help them. And so that's what I did. For 2 years, I did that as a volunteer, and then ultimately finally started getting paid. But it was never really my intention to take the job or even get a job out of it, but it just kind of happened, and I'm still there. And I don't know how long I'll be there, but we still have a lot of work to do. So, as Phoebe said, MADA stands for Mexican American Development Association. It was founded in 1972. Basically, it's a community self-help organization is what they kind of started it out as. They had this priest brought here from Florida to help them. Look at my typos in there, because it's what I do. To help them start this organization. He helped launch the nonprofit organization, and then also helped to purchase the land to build the current building that is at 17 North 6th Street. And really they were focused on the most vulnerable of the population, which was children and older adults, as well as Mexican Americans, Chicanos, which if you don't know what Chicanos are, it's typically American born American-born Mexican Americans and Native Americans. And so they built the little community hub. They self-built that. They built the basketball court over at La Raza Park. And then they started these programs like the weatherization program that you now see housed in Housing Resources. They built Anciano Towers, which is a senior low-income housing right down the road from us. They launched a lot of the programs that we currently see in other organizations, and I'll kind of get to how that kind of happened. They did a lot of advocacy in the school district at the time, local government and other community needs, and that really was their focus. And it was like right on the heels of the civil rights movement and the Chicano movement, and it was a way to advocate for a population that really hadn't had that before. And so, so MADA, if you're not familiar where it is, it's a little brown building on the north side of town off of Grand, across from the Colorado Outdoors development. And they call this area Tortilla Flats. Does anyone here know why? Why do they call it Tortilla Flats? I know it's like kind of a contentious thing, and sometimes people feel like they're being offensive by calling that, but I can assure you that with the exception of one person I've talked to, this is self-named, very proud of the name. You know why?
Dolores? Her father, her uncle used to make tortillas, and you could smell it out throughout the community.
Yeah, it's pretty simple. It used to smell like tortillas in the neighborhood. Tortillas were cooking in the neighborhood, and so it's dubbed Tortilla Flats, which is pretty cool. And so that picture there is a little girl in our cooking class warming tortillas on our grill. So when I came on in 2020, it was a homeless hub, and this was the scene. The entire building was like a hoarder's paradise, truly. It was full of clothing, just stuff from one end to the other. People could come and shop for free. They would show up every day and just go through clothes. But as you can imagine, this takes a lot of administration. And I think other organizations that still do this understand that that challenge of receiving all of these free items and then having to go through them and redistribute them. But really, over, probably 20, 30 years, what had happened at MADA from their beginning of launching all of these programs to kind of what I came onto in 2020, which was closed doors, was leadership that kind of went down one stream of funding, which was CSBG. It's a community service block grant through the state of Colorado, which is to help the community, truly. It wasn't a significant amount of money, but that's the only stream of funding that MADA had for decades, as far as I know. And then donations and things like that. And so I think creatively what the director did at the time was that she did programs that didn't cost money. It was still a service to the community, but it didn't cost money because the money that they received from the state was truly only enough to keep the wheels turning. So they did homeless services. They took clothing and redistributed it. They got excess from sharing ministries, redistributed it. Really was a homeless hub. Unfortunately, being a homeless hub is not what the organization was founded for. It was not what the community wanted. And so we kind of found that out through a project, actually, through the city of Montrose, HAP, and MADA at the time, called the Photo Voice Project, where the community came out. They took photos of Tortilla Flats and the surrounding area and talked about the things that they wanted to see change in and things that were concerns to them. And the MADA building was one of them. They wanted their building back. They wanted their building back to have parties and events. They wanted to have that community hub back. And so that, when I came on, was really my first priority, was to get that space back to the community. So as you can imagine, kind of getting out of homeless services has been a really hard transition for us, but we really take the stance that there are other organizations who do this service, and we want to support them do what they do best. So as I said, COVID really was a positive catalyst for MADA. What had happened with that is people had complained for years, and then between the Photo Voice project and the fact that MADA actually closed their doors during that time due to health issues and things like that. But that really prompted the state to cut off that funding, or at least force MADA to do that. And so when I came on, pretty quickly, we were super lucky, and if you've ever been a nonprofit, you know how hard it is to make change. We were very lucky to have rapid change because the board kind of willingly, those who didn't want to stay willingly left, the director willingly left, and we were able to come in and make the change that was needed. We were able to work with the state to finish out that CSBG grant. We were able to relinquish some of the funds to another organization who could actually put them to use because, as I said, the doors were closed at the time. And our board that we kind of rebuilt, they're all from the community. Every single one of them. My board chair, Kathy Cordova, her dad was one of the original founders, which is super cool. But yeah, so they're all community members. And yeah, like I said, like COVID really was the best catalyst for this organization change. So my work, my volunteer years over there, I spent a lot of time writing grants and working on funding. And as I said, the first priority for me was getting the community space back. This is our main hall here. We had to kind of tear it down to the studs, and we had asbestos abatement, and then we created that community space for the community to rent out for their events. This painting, you can't really see it here, but it was painted on the walls. It had to come down due to the asbestos abatement. And what's really cool is that the artist is still alive. He painted it back in 1972. He's still alive, lives in Pueblo. We were able to commission him to paint it on a canvas for us. So he picked up his paintbrush, hadn't touched it in 30 years, painted this. It's not exactly the same, but it's very similar. We have it hanging on the wall, so we can have that kind of indefinitely now. The other part of the renovations is the kitchen. There was a kitchen because they used to do meals and commodities and things like that, but the kitchen really wasn't usable the way that it was. It was multiple rooms, and if you've ever been to the building, you know the building's been added on to 15 times, which creates its own construction challenges. But we, as I worked with the board, we kind of talked about sustainability and what long-term sustainability looked like for the organization, as well as like the community need. And the community need was to use the space for their events, to use the kitchen for their events and cooking, and also this need for entrepreneurship and helping people who are, you know, peddling their tamales on Facebook illegally, right? Or maybe not safely, and wanting to provide a space for them to make those things, get their proper licenses, and start a business. And so that was the idea behind creating the commissary kitchen. So through a lot of grant funding, we were able to renovate the kitchen. So we have a full commercial kitchen licensed, and it has multiple purposes, like I said, between the food trucks, the caterers, the community use, and then we have cooking classes and other things in the summer as well. And so, as I said, like we spent the last 5 years rebuilding the organization. We rebuilt the board with all of those community members. I think where we're at now is kind of a transitional place. Like my board is aging. They've been really passionate, and I think they've been the right ones to make the positive change going forward and create the vision. I think we're at a point where they're starting to get tired. A lot of the first years was physical labor, to be quite honest, you know. We had to do a lot of cleanup. And so we're at a transition stage, I think, where we're gonna start trying to encourage other folks to get on the board. And then bylaws, you know, we updated our bylaws, our mission and vision. We just, it's kind of cool, we did a mission and vision back in 2021 for 2026. 6, and we have accomplished every single thing on there, which is it's hard to do. So super proud of that accomplishment. So we went back at it in January and we did it again, and so we've got a very tall order of things to work on now. We've been doing programming, we have leadership programming, lots of partnerships. I strongly believe in partnerships. I think that we're all better together. You guys know things I don't know, and I think we work with Colorado State University Extension a lot with their family leadership training program. That is a program that I'm super passionate about. I went through it. I became a facilitator for it, now a site coordinator. But it's a program really to help give people the tools and skills they need to get into positions of power. And they do projects and goals for them as little as like, I want to learn how to advocate for my child at the school, to I want to get on city council someday. And so the program is a 20-week program where the first 10 weeks is social emotional skills, and the second 10 weeks is civics lessons. So that's my favorite part. The social emotional part is a little too touchy-feely for my liking, but I do feel strongly in that program. We have been doing several programs in partnership with CSU. We work closely with the Colorado Health Foundation. We've been doing kids cooking classes, gardening classes, and then we brought back the Fiesta. So the Fiesta was a big community event that used to happen here, and it hadn't happened in over 10 years. And so we kind of brought back a mini version of it in 2021. 2022 as a 50th anniversary, and we were overwhelmed with the amount of people that showed up that we decided to bring it back as a full event. And so in 2022 when we had it, we probably had 500 people. We were sort of shocked, and the feeling was it felt like people said it felt like a family reunion for the Hispanic community. And so we were really energized and excited about that. So we put on the first revived Fiesta in 2023, and we've seen over 1,000 people both years that we've had the event. So it is August 16th this year. We have a really good lineup of bands. With the exception of one, they're all local bands this year. Donnie Morales, Armamento Especial, Clave Cinco. We will have our local dance group. We are getting mariachi band this year, which is exciting. We'll have the parade. And then there's just what we try to encourage all of our local food trucks and mom and pops vendors to come. So we have food, kids activities, lots of things. So you guys should come if you're available. It is the same day as Youth Appreciation Day, but it usually works out really well that families seem to come after Youth Appreciation events kind of conclude. So. And we've done other events, like we had a Grinchmas event, just different Easter egg hunts, different little community events through the year. And really the Fiesta is just that. It's a community event for the community. It is not a fundraiser. I wish it were, but it's not. And let's see. So this is the community hub space. I try to sneak in and get pictures when people are there for their parties. But we have, it's rented pretty much 2 months out every single Saturday. What I find in the Mexican community is they like to party on Saturdays and Sundays, and they do not like Fridays. I don't understand it, but they will party on a Sunday before they'll party on a Friday. But it's been so busy in the the rental space. So there's birthday parties, graduation parties right now. Some people use the kitchen, some people don't. I'll have people there. We had a family reunion last year, and they used it for 3 days straight, hundreds of people. So that's been a really exciting project to do. Gets a lot of use. Anyone can rent it. As with anything, it comes with its own challenges. It can get costly, and especially when you have that many people coming through the doors every single weekend. So I often come into surprises early Sunday morning. And then the kitchen, we have a ton of restaurants. I don't even have them on there. You know, Layered, she's graduated and then come back. And she's just leaving now. I don't know if you're familiar with Layered. She's awesome. She's actually moving in at the old Mountain Rose Catering right next door here. She's moving in there like as we speak. But as I said, the commissary kitchen, the idea was to create this space to help entrepreneurs get their food businesses going. And you know, I think Layer's a good example of that. Crave the Dog is a new one we have. A hot dog stand, Rocky's. Los Dogos is a Mexican hot dog stand. The Snow Cone guy is there. Some of the farmers market, vendors, food trucks. And we've had some kind of come and go, and really what we find is that there's such a need for this. And although there's a kitchen in Olathe, what I found with my businesses is that people don't want to drive there to wash their dishes. A lot of these trucks have like one need in the kitchen. It's just need to wash my dishes here because they're licensed for everything else in their truck. I need to just come in and prep this one thing. I can do everything else in the truck. And so we've honestly, with the kitchen, been a victim of our own success. I'm actually so it's so busy that I've just told people, like the vendors, like you're gonna have to kind of work amongst yourself and figure it out back here because we just don't have space and time. And we have a conflict really of time between the kitchen users and the community use, because the community is using the hall on the weekends, and most people who are getting their businesses going, it's their side hustle. And so they're wanting to use it at the same time. So I do have plans, and I will talk about that in a minute, for how we're going to resolve that. But it's super exciting. There's always food cooking. It's hard to get into brick and mortar, and I don't know, you know, business-wise, if that makes sense for people. And so this creates that opportunity to be able to have their business without that cost. And really, we charge like almost nothing for people to be there. And we're really lucky that we had the building to begin with, and that we were able to get all these grants, and there's no debt associated with anything. So I'm able to provide it to people for close to nothing. So, as I said, like the building itself is, you know, we have community use, we have shared office spaces, and so like I said, huge on partnerships. We have this community hub. We weren't going to reinvent the wheel. We weren't going to go out and create new programs, try to do things other people were doing. We really sat down and we said, you know, like what was MADA, and had to do a lot of work with my board to say, like, we were that, but these people are doing this now. These people are doing this now. We don't need to duplicate services, right? But what we could do is we could bring the services directly to the community by offering low-cost office space to other organizations. And so that's what we do. We have 5 offices that we rent out to other community organizations, nonprofits, to provide their services in our space, to have a comfortable place for the community that they feel comfortable with to come and get those services. So we have that. We have one office that's kind of a rotating office. I have some people who just need a meeting space here and there. We allow them to use that. The big room gets used for meeting space as well. And then we have a community garden that we built last year, which is a really cool project. We have the kids cooking classes in there. They pick out of the garden, and then they prepare the food. I have a close partnership with Advocates for Recovery, and so we have folks who are in recovery who have garden spaces, and it's a good positive activity for them to do in their recovery process. We work a lot with ATC, which is Advanced Treatment Center, and we have those folks come. They love to be in the garden. And then we have the shared kitchen space, as I said, with all of its many uses. And the kitchen, as I was saying, so the kitchen, like I just don't have space, time. I've bought all the refrigerators and freezers that my space could accommodate, and my electric, quite frankly, can't take anymore. So we are actually in the process of purchasing some downtown buildings, which is a really exciting project. kind of a combination of historic preservation, economic development, but with all these kitchen users, the thing that I found is that even with this low entry to their business in this commercial kitchen, it's still very difficult to ever get from that mobile space to a permanent space. And then the other thing I found is several of them wanting to do pop-up nights. They want to, can we put tables out? And I'm like, yes, but I'm not a restaurant, you know? And so really wanting to preserve the community space for the community, but still honoring like the fact that these folks really want to get their businesses going. And really that is a form of increasing power in community and equity and helping people start businesses. And so we plan to purchase these buildings downtown. They need a lot of work. And quite frankly, they're buildings that it would be hard for someone who wasn't a nonprofit to be able to turn around. But the goal is to create a large commissary kitchen on one side with a viewing window so that folks would be able to share what they're doing there if they so wish to. And on the other side would be a food hall, like a food hub, so that we could, accommodate those needs that I was mentioning. People, my businesses are wanting to have pop-up nights. They want to serve. They want to have grab and go. I have one lady who does meals to go once a week. And so this space would kind of check all those boxes. You could come into the food hall. There'll be multiple businesses of all different types. You can get grab and go, lunch, dinner, whatever. You can sit down and have a meal. And also, again, like long-term sustainability, can't live on grants forever. And I think that this will be a really good opportunity for the organization's long-term success. So that is in the works. I knocked this back, it looks like. Still works. So the kitchen project is a really big project, but it's coming. And then what that will allow is that the community hub space to really go back to primarily just community use. And then housing solutions, oh boy, that's a big one. You know, it's on my board's mission or vision. I think, you know, they're excited and very proud of the Anciano Towers project, and so wanting to kind of dip our toes into housing, as you know, like those are the big problems, right? Housing, economic development, childcare. Those are the things that they're kind of looking at, and so I don't know what that looks like yet. It's a big one, so to be determined. But I am only one human, and so I'm at a really awful stage of like growth and still just being me. So if anyone's ever trying to reach me, you can contact me 15 times because I do have, I'm one of those with 150 unread messages in my inbox. But yeah, I just don't have help yet, but you know, I'll get there. Housing solutions, like I said, after school and summer programming. So we're kind of doing a little bit of summer programming as it is, and then trying to kind of figure out, you know, the board really wanted to do childcare, and as we talk more about it, is like maybe more of the childcare looks like these summer programming, because they have been super popular. We find that in the summertime, people really want something to do with their kiddos during the day. So that'll be something that we're looking at as well. And that's it. That's me on the golf cart with all of the neighborhood children. So there's plenty of time for questions. Surely you guys have some. Okay.
But I do, for starters.
Okay.
Tell us, I know you're going to do canning and freezing classes this fall, right? Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yes, we are. We work with CSU to provide canning and other preservation classes. We're going to do a meat preservation. We're doing a whole hunting series, which is kind of an interesting one. We did a navigating the draw class, was super popular. What I find in all my community conversations is that hunting seems to be really popular in the community. But there were a lot of stories of not so legal behavior. And so I thought, oh gosh, okay, like you were passionate about this, but we've really got to do it the right way. So we brought a series in partnership with CPW and the Nature Connection, the Friends of Youth and Nature actually. And we brought Navigating the Draw earlier this year, which was really popular, just an education class on how does the draw work, even though that is changing soon. And then we just have, currently there's a hunter safety class going on, and it just started yesterday, but we filled up in a day. So there's definitely a big need. It's not here in Montrose very often, and that's part of it, but it's mostly youth. And then we're doing a butchering and skinning class, and then the meat preservation as well. So.
Cool. All right, who has a question?
Bethany, you made it sound like getting grants was fairly easy. I can't imagine that. Would you tell us, do you have a grant writer, or is it you? And how did you go about that? And how are you pitching things so that you're so successful?
That's a great question. Okay, so no, I do not have a grant writer. I am the grant writer. There's several things with grant writing, and one is relationships. And so with some funders, relationships are really important to receiving funding. Some are just competitive, write my story, make my pitch, and see what happens, right? But I have made a good relationship with the Colorado Health Foundation. Part of that is that there are not a lot of organizations in our community that are focused on equity work in particular, and particularly this community is part of the community. And although MADA is, it helps everyone. We really focus on that equity piece. And so I guess part of grant writing is understanding what funders fund, what funders want, what they want to tell people about, and creating that story. And finding funders that really align with what you're trying to do for work and can understand what you're doing. Because I think, as like a lot of people say, what do you even do over there? And I think sometimes it's hard to say, it's hard for people to understand, like, what even is equity, right? And it doesn't have to be like what you're seeing in the mainstream of equity. It is housing, it is economic development, it is giving opportunity. And so, again, like it really, part of it is that relationship, part of it is finding grants to match what we're doing, not chasing grants. I think I see that a lot in the nonprofit world, is there's a grant opportunity and people are just so hungry for a grant money that they chase it, but it's not sustainable and it doesn't match like what they're trying to do. So I'm pretty careful about that. I will say that I do think funding is changing. Funding is going to be different for a while. Funding was easy during COVID, and I think a lot of people were like, whew, I can fill out this Google form, $25,000. We're in the grant space now, and it got really busy in the grant world, but also money was flowing. Finally, a lot of that money is sunsetting. A lot of those programs are sunsetting, and you're seeing cuts, and so I think there's some positive to it, and my hope is that what happens in our community is that we become more resourceful, and we work with each other. We, instead of me saying, oh, I want to do this program, I'm going to write a grant and find funding and I'm going to do it. I'm going to say, who can I work with? Who belongs at the table? How am I going to make this happen with limited resources? Because what if I don't get the grant? Because the reality is there's going to be less funding. Grants are going to be more competitive. Your story, your pitch is going to be way more important now. I think what we're seeing is that, with federal cuts, you're seeing, we don't rely on any federal funding anymore. However, private funders are looking to see how can they help those who are relying on federal funding. And so they're helping offset those cuts. And then you're seeing, the economy changes and you're seeing people people be less giving to those private foundations and funders. And so, as I said, I hope it's a positive change where nonprofits start to work together a little bit more and become more resourceful. But grant funding is one of my strengths.
So your organization is how much funding comes from, for the overhead is grant funded versus community donations or?
We don't get a lot of community donations. The funding, the revenue generated from the kitchen and the office space is enough to cover the building costs. So it is primarily grant funded.
I have a question. I'm back here. You need new, younger board members.
Well, they don't have to be younger. It's not a requirement.
So I have a friend I'd like to tell about that.
Mhm.
So where do I find the information on the board?
So they can reach out to me. That's my email. My phone number's here. And then we meet every other month. We meet on a Friday night, the best day of the week for board meetings. It's every other month. But yeah, so just send them to me. We would love to, we have plenty of room on our board to add more members too. So,
do you have a job it's something that?
no, we don't.
Okay.
When we redid the bylaws, we got rid of, there were a lot of requirements based on that one grant funding, and we kind of got rid of a lot of those. I think we definitely want to see some more diversity in the board. Like I said, we have a board full of community members, which is awesome, and they're the right people to steer the organization where it should go. But now we need, capacity. So.
A very great presentation. You mentioned housing and childcare. And how does that, those are huge areas. How does that fit in with your mission and vision?
So as I said, I think, helping people really is at the heart of what MADA wants to do and what MADA is, stands for. And again, housing, access to housing, access to childcare, having childcare to work are all key components of equity and the ability for people to live, really. So, like I said, they are big. I'm not going to be able to tackle those things on my own, but I can help be a catalyst to make projects happen. And one of the things that we're looking at is even in the area of Tortilla Flats, there's a couple of places where there's lots that we could do infill, and we can work with other organizations to make those projects happen. I certainly I can't take on housing by myself, so.
I was used to take a lot of clothes over there years ago, and you served a good breakfast for a lot of people in the area that didn't get a good meal per day. Your mission's changed, and if I drive past there, I always have the feeling that it's a defunct organization, and I'd like to suggest that you get an article in the paper. What's the internet newspaper we have? It just escaped my mind.
The Maher, Montrose Maher.
I think you should get the public aware of what's going on, because you're doing good things.
Thank you. I actually, that makes me think of something. We do a senior meals on Tuesdays. I don't know if anybody is aware of that, but that was something that the board really wanted to see come back. And we ended up with a partnership with AARP and VOA, Senior Community Meals, and they provide the food, and we serve it on Tuesdays from 11 to 1. So it's free.
Yeah. Would you define Tortilla Flats and where it's at? Is it a defined area or just a name?
Ish, yeah. So it is. It's off of Grand Avenue, basically to the railroad tracks. and from, I would say, so don't quote me on the exact area because it is still yet to be determined through a community process for the historic designation that the city is working on. But I would say, some people say from West Main all the way to North 9th, and some people might say maybe North 1st-ish, that area up to North 9th. But that kind of rectangle that's sandwiched between Townsend and Colorado Outdoors. Yeah.
It's nice to know that everybody can refer to it as Tortilla Flats, because that
Yeah.
was I was like, oh, am I allowed to say that?
Yeah, I actually pulled out I have some old magazines, like MADA magazines, from 1985, and it's referred to as Tortilla Flats in there, so.
I was just wondering if that recipe for the tortillas that Tortilla Flats was named after is available. Or a training class.
It is not, but I have lots of ladies who can make tortillas. We've been doing some of that too, tamale making, tortilla making, and demonstrations. So we still need a website, but we do have a Facebook page if you're on there. You can see when we have those kind of programs. The tortillas are pretty simple, recipe-wise.
And I noticed that the library bookmobile is there.
Yes,
Once
they
a week?
come to the senior meals. Yeah.
On Tuesdays.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yep.
Another question. Yes.
I notice in your picture what I assume to be La Raza Park.
Mhm.
It's a beautiful park. It's not very much used, except by the Tortilla Flats residents, right?
Right. Mhm. We use it for the fiesta, so we host the fiesta there. There's been conversation with the rec district about having programming there, and nothing, has concrete has happened yet. But we've talked about, soccer, baseball practice, those kind of things. Maybe hosting some of the teams there, but it hasn't really happened yet. But it is pretty busy. I see parties over there. We want to keep our fiesta there, although it is getting big. I think it's really important to the community to keep that event there in the community.
Another question? Because I know you guys have them.
I've got maybe more comment.
Okay.
So I just wanted to commend you and your board, especially with the fiesta. I know that there was a break there. To be quite honest, before times when our agency used to work the fiesta, it wasn't fun, and it was honestly violent. It was just not what I think even the community wanted. And now we have officers that stop by, we play football. It's a completely different atmosphere. And so I just commend you and your folks for making it that way and promoting that positive culture, because it's become so much better than it was. So thank you for that.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, it's interesting because we were worried too, honestly. I was like, oh gosh. And I tell them every year, there will be problems. There may be a fight. Things could get ugly. Like, this is just par for the course. But it feels like there's such a sense of gratitude around for having that event back and having that sense of community and family that people seem to be more positive. So fingers crossed it stays that way.
So Bethany, have you noticed an uptick in visitors and just, I think the culture to go in that building is very positive. I mean, it's got such positive energy since this whole West Main revitalization has
Yeah,
started.
Phoebe, I can't get work done, actually. I just started, I now have a sign on the door that's like, call me if you need something, because if you know me, you know I have a very noticeable vehicle, and so whenever I'm at work, my big orange school bus is there, and I can't keep people out. So I'm like, I actually have work to do. So, but it is very busy. It's not just me, and I don't have an assistant at the door, so it's like all day. I mean, it's good because people are coming. A lot of times people are there and they're just looking for something. They're looking for some service somewhere that we don't necessarily have, but they just need that. We have Tri-County Health Network is located in the building, and they're very busy with a lot of different services too, and so we have a lot of foot traffic from them. A lot of interest in using the space. That's another part of it, like people are there a lot. So yeah, it is very busy. We finally phased out the final piece of the homeless hub just a few months ago, which was the mail service. Like that was hard to kind of get rid of. And you know, I know a lot of people, we still get dumping, by the way, of clothes. So if you know people who need to get rid of clothes, please don't send them my way. I have fallen into the dump, taking beds and couches to the dump. It's not been enjoyable. Like I literally, honestly, take the items and put them in the dumpster most of the time. Or I have to physically go to the dump with these items myself and get rid of them when people dump them. I will give people vouchers. I have offered that before people dump it there. We refer people all the time places to donate the stuff. But it is like, you know, that was very hard to get rid of for the community, and I think people get upset about it. People say, but I want to give it to somebody for free, who can have it for free. And I do understand that, but I try to explain that these other organizations are also nonprofits. They're not making money off of reselling the clothes. They're selling them for a low cost so that people can get them. So it's not that we don't want to do it, we can't. And then, you know, you add in that we have this commercial kitchen with people cooking their food, and we have other organizations and people renting space. We really can't have, you know, bags of clothing and beds left outside and couches, you know. So please send them to Habitat, to Salvation Army, Goodwill. We send a lot of people to Second Impressions.
So you talk about your downtown purchase. Is that a work in progress, or?
That is a work in progress. We're under contract to purchase the buildings.
Okay.
It's a complicated building, and so I don't know when we have a set closing. I don't know if that will happen. I'm not super confident on that date. But I'm ready to get rolling because, like, you know, there's tax credits, there's grants that I would like to be able to, you know, kind of access, and that really depends on the time of year, of course, to make those things happen. But yes.
And you mentioned that you might have a conversation with CMU, their culinary program,
Yes.
and also use that space as well.
Yeah, so the hope is for CMU to kind of funnel some of their culinary program students into our kitchen. Will be a good opportunity for them to have, you know, our current users, even graduates of I call them graduates, but of the Olathe Kitchen, who are in that space where they have kind of outgrown the space, but they still can't yet get brick and mortar. Maybe they don't want it. Like, this space will offer that opportunity for them as well.
And so, and then I'm really jumping around. To rent the community room, is at no charge?
No, there is a charge. That's the only tool I got to deal with the issues that we have with the room. It's money. We charge a deposit, it's $150, and then we had to raise the fee to $175 for the room. They get their deposit back as long as all is well. But you know, the more use, the busier it is, the more issues that we seem to have. But really committed to keeping that space available for community use, and so you know, there's just a lot of conversation of expectations and what that looks like, and then also, like I said, fee. The money is really motivating for people to do the right thing, truly. So, and I'm finding that people are going to pay it if they want to use it. There's not a lot of other spaces to rent for those kinds of things, but you know, like a lot of it really is unattended children. You know, we have one small window on that side of the building, and a kid threw a rock through it. You know, someone flushed a Kit Kat bar down the toilet, and I had to, it was fun to find on the camera, like, because I had to have the plumber. I was like, why is this toilet, you know? But it's things like that, you know? So,
Okay, well,
yeah, navigating
any more
that,
questions
so.
about MADA, you guys at all? Susan, you're good. So let's talk about you. What makes you want to be a marathon runner? How long have you been an ultra marathon runner?
Oh, you know what? I can't sit still. And, I maybe have adult ADHD, I'm not really sure, but or I'm just in mom survival mode, you know. My husband travels for work, so it's just me and the kiddos. And then I can't sit down, truly. And so for me, my piece is running and doing things that are brainless. Like I love to can. I have a giant garden. My husband does the hard work. I do all the harvesting and preserving, but I have to be busy with my hands, with my body. And so ultra running I wouldn't say it's always peaceful because you're with yourself a lot. And you can ruminate, and you can think on things over and over and over 15 times in the long run. But I really enjoy it. I really enjoy being outside. I have been very close to placing. I have placed, so now I'm kind of hungry for that. My kids are out of sports in the summer, so I feel like it's the time that I can go do my thing.
Obviously, I'm pretty impressed with that. Yeah. You guys, let's give her a big hand. That was a great.